Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. I am Sherrilyn and I am so glad you found me. If you are not new here, thank you for coming back. It truly means so much to me to see you guys every single week, just showing up again for me. Also wanted to say thank you to everybody who came out to CrimeCon in Nashville. I literally cannot tell you how much that meant to me to have 3 days of just meeting all of you. I cannot wait for the next one. The next one being CrimeCon UK. So if you are on the other side of the pond, I can't wait to meet all of you again, see some familiar faces. It's just it's a great way to just reset, fill my cup, stay focused, and just remember why I do this. Today's case was actually suggested to me by somebody, a couple gals that I met at CrimeCon. Before we get started though, we have a lot to go through. We're just gonna do a little grounding. I'm gonna start with a riddle. I can fly, but I have no wings. I can cry, but I have no eyes. What am I? This is another one that I got, but it's another one that I think possibly I got because maybe I did it before. Every time I get it, I'm like, is it because I did it before? This sounds familiar. Or am I brilliant? I don't know. While you think about it though, I do have a quick message for you. I want to give a huge thank you to our sponsor today, Fume. Before I talk about Fume and how much I love them, if you're not new here, you know how much I love them. But this message, this part right here is specifically for the person in the comments that said in the last sponsorship, it sounded like I had stakes in the company. I just want to thank you for putting that manifestation out there into the universe, because I hope you come back one day, check in the future how my stakes are going into Fume, and I have some. Maybe I have my own device, maybe I have my own flavor, I don't know, but I just want to thank you for putting that out there. I currently don't have stakes in the company, but I wish I did. They obviously didn't know, my history with Fume. It's no secret. I absolutely love them. I love what they have done for my health. I love that they, want to continue helping people transition into a more, healthier lifestyle, breaking up with bad habits, all the things. I love seeing that viewers of my channel have said in the comments that they have also fallen in love with Fume. I love that they continue to support my channel, and I just love them as a company and for what they stand for. So that makes me a Fume pick me. Okay. I see nothing wrong with a company that wants to help people work towards healthier goals by getting rid of, or, helping to make that transition of overcoming bad habits easier. If you don't know what Fume is, apparently I talk like I have stakes in the company. They are an award-winning device that makes that transition much less stressful and easier to attain. And the reason that I'm so passionate about it is because I've gone through the process myself. And I've gone through it with or without the Fume. It is not fun to try to, stop doing something that, isn't the best for you. I've also learned to rely on my Fume for my comfort. It's my little comfort baby, especially the base, because it's nice and heavy. If you're new here, I've said this before in the past, but I love the comfort of weight. So if someone's got a nice weight to it, something has a nice weight to it, I'm soothed. Now, a message for anybody who is new or hasn't seen or purchased a Fume before. This is not a vape, okay? When I see you don't care about your viewers because you're promoting vapes, this is quite the opposite, okay? There is no vapor. This is a core that has flavor in it. So you draw the flavor to your mouth. You're not inhaling vapor. There's no smoke. There's no harmful chemicals. But you are doing, the motion, and you're getting that satisfaction of a little bit of a flavor in your mouth that's not going to your lungs. It's literally as simple as that. And Fume is constantly investing in third-party studies to ensure the safety of their products. It is also backed by doctors in the US. So no, I'm not promoting, dangerous habits for my viewers. Fume has over 300,000 success stories. Your girl is one of them. There's no reason why you can't be one either. And if you look in the comments, you're also going to find even more people who are also, backing me up on this. So you can get in there too. There's no better time than right now either, because they just launched 3 new flavors: black licorice, spearmint, and cinnamon hearts. Oh, OMG. My ride or die was the crisp mint, but when I heard about cinnamon hearts, I was like, oh my gosh, like please, just please be like a cinnamon heart. It's exactly what you expect it to be. It's the bad boy that's been in here for me, and that I'm just like now salivating over. If you want to check them out, you can go to tryfume.com and use my code sherrilyndale. And when you do that, you get your Fume base for free when you order the Journey Pack, which is like, I feel like that's so kind. And reason 109,088 why I love Fume. Once again, that website is tryfum.com and use my code sherrilyndale, or you can also just scan the QR code that is on your screen right now. Thank you so much, Fume, for being a continued sponsor on this channel, and here's to hoping one day I have stakes in the company. All right, like I said, today's case was recommended to me by 2 amazing Sippindales at CrimeCon, and the second they gave me just like the quick synopsis, I could not get this young girl out of my head. Fast forward to coming home from CrimeCon, 2 days later, my oldest graduated, and my heart was, obviously, I take in those moments, but doing what I do allows me to really take in those moments differently, I think. And I thought so much about Lauren, the girl that we're going to talk about today, and her family throughout the celebration. And I haven't been able to get them off of my mind, because I'm just very aware of how lucky I am to be able to witness those milestones. And there are so many families out there who aren't. Today we are talking about Lauren Landavazo, who will forever be 13 and who will never get the chance to graduate because her life was brutally taken from her by somebody she didn't even know, who felt that they knew her and were entitled to her because he was stalking from afar. Lauren was born October 14th, 2002 to her parents Vern and Bianca in Wichita Falls, Texas. She was affectionately called Pooh Bear. She was the only daughter and had 2 brothers. She is described by her family as somebody who just knew everybody. She was a social butterfly. She talked to everybody. She was friendly with everybody that she met. Her parents said that she was most likely like the most popular person in school, not because she was in the popular crowd, but just because she made time for everybody. She was the friend that you would call in junior high, and she would stay up late in her room helping you out with any problems you were having, whether that was with homework or school or friends or boys. Her family says she was also extremely funny. She intentionally wanted to make everybody's day better. They never knew what to expect from her. If she was, in her room for a little bit, she was most likely going to come out just dressed in something crazy, have like crazy makeup on or something, that just like anything that she could to get people laughing. The last time Lauren's father, Vern, saw her alive was September 1st, 2016. It was a Thursday night, and he had kissed her on the top of her head, told her he loved her, and said goodnight. The next morning, he leaves before Lauren and Bianca leave for work and school, so he had already left. Lauren's mother, Bianca, said that morning Lauren was running a little bit late, so a family friend was going to take her to school, and she just remembers telling Lauren, you have to hurry up, we can't keep her waiting. And before she, ran out of the door, like, yes, I know, she gave her a kiss and told her she loved her. Her mom says she distinctly remembers that day just being such a beautiful day, almost like spring weather. She went to work, and then she even posted a selfie because she was feeling so good, and it was such a good day. And the selfie, had the caption, "Life is good." Lauren made it to school that day. She was in grade 8 at McNeil Middle School in Wichita Falls, and it was quite early in the school year. School had just started. And just like many other 13-year-old kids in junior high, high school, after school, she met up with her friends to walk home. One of her friends being a young girl named Michaela Smith, who she had been very close with. The two of them knew each other since 4th grade, I believe, and usually walked home together. Michaela said that it was a pretty normal conversation. They were just talking about being disappointed that they didn't have any classes together that year. They're talking about what they were going to do this upcoming weekend, just no concerns. To set the tone here, there's also other children from the junior high that are also walking back from school to home. They're going through like back alleyways to get to their house. Just everybody just in their own little world, having their own conversation. I can distinctly remember myself doing that every single day with their friends, just not even aware of what was about to happen. Just after 3 p.m., Lauren is just about to veer off from walking with Michaela and another one of their friends, and she's going to head towards her boyfriend's house. And they're all interrupted and just stop in their tracks when this young guy pulls in front of them in a vehicle and is blocking them from moving forward. Initially, they kind of look at each other like, is this a joke? Laugh it off. Lauren, looks at the driver kind of like, okay, let's get moving. And he proceeds to reach beside him, and before anybody has a moment to react, he pulls out a rifle and starts firing shots. 16 shots were fired. 15 of those hit Lauren. Michaela was the first to be struck. She had been hit in the chest by the first round and remembers just like somehow she found the strength to get to safety and scream for her other friend to get away. Michaela's accounts of what happened are absolutely horrific to think about. She says that she remembers hearing all of these shots going off and wondering, like why she can hear them and she can't really feel anything. And then she says she knew she had to sit down. She couldn't keep standing. She wasn't feeling good, and she can feel just blood running from her. As everything is happening so fast, she remembers seeing Lauren's legs and they're on the ground, and she's just screaming for Lauren to respond, and she doesn't. Michaela is able to take out her cell phone and call her mom and tell her Lauren's been shot. She was in such a panic that her mom wasn't really sure what she was saying, and she's able to, just say like, we're down and I've also been shot. The shooter emptied his entire weapon, and after doing so with dozens of witnesses around, most of whom are all students and friends of Lauren's and Michaela's that are on their way home, they're just looking in horror, and he just leaves. Many people are calling in to 911 as ambulance are rushing to the scene. Words of the shooting it's spreading very quickly, and a friend of Bianca, Lauren's mom's, pulls up and says, is Lauren home yet? And she says, no, not yet. And she's like, there are kids down. So Bianca starts to make a beeline for the scene, and this is kind of simultaneously as Lauren's father, Vern, is arriving home, and he just sees that there's commotion and books it behind in the truck. Bianca said she was first to arrive at the scene, and she sees ambulances and paramedics, and they're working on Michaela, and she looks down and she just sees her daughter laying there, and she's on her back, but her head is turned towards her, Bianca, her mom, and she's like looking, essentially like kind of like looking at her, and she said in that moment she just knew that her baby was gone. Witnesses just said they'll never forget the screams that came out of Bianca. She's just screaming for her daughter, just like, please don't go, please come back, and just so confused as to why nobody was working on her, and she was just like there by herself. I literally just, it makes me sick to think about. I cannot imagine what that moment would have been like. Another thing that like I've just replayed so much, and wanted to, reach out and help any way I could for the family. Anyways, Lauren's father, Vern, he arrived a short time after, and explains the situation as just being unable to process what he's seeing. He's kind of in the mindset of being like, everything is going to be okay. He was able to ride in the ambulance in the front seat, and he explains it as, he's telling her as he looks back, like, hold on. And he remembers hearing the first responder saying that they had a heartbeat. And so he kind of held on to that, thinking like, oh my God, they have a heartbeat. It's going to be okay. Unfortunately, it was a artificial heartbeat. And he thought it was going to be good news. So when he gets to the hospital and he meets up with his wife, who is just like, no, she's gone. He's trying to say like, no, they were working on her. It's going to be okay. They're in a room together, and they said they don't even know how long it was. And then eventually a couple doctors come in and they just like shake their head saying that she didn't make it, and that was it. The medical examiner determined that Lauren has sustained 15 bullet wounds from a .22 caliber rifle. I hate to use the word because it just sounds like so aggressive, but it's like, it's true. Like, it was overkill. Like 8 of those shots proved to have been fatal, which just like upsets you even so much more as we're going to get even like further into this and the why. Like, ooh. Obviously, Lauren's death was ultimately ruled a homicide. And like I said, there were a lot of witnesses. Keep in mind, those poor babies too, like they're 11, 12, 13 years old, so traumatized, walking home from school, seeing this happen to their classmate and friend. Michaela miraculously survives, and she was able to be interviewed by detectives. It sounds like there was like a lot of sensitivity and discretion around all of that, just to make sure that she wasn't further traumatized. But she was able to describe her shooter. She described him as a young white male with chestnut colored hair that kind of was like, I guess, like shaggy, like was loosely like around his face. She had only seen him briefly before, everything just, for lack of better words, went to hell, but recalled that he had a prominent nose and like acne scarring across his cheeks. So quickly, the description of the shooter is released on the news, on the radio, on social media, everywhere they could to try to catch this monster as soon as possible. I can't even imagine what the fear in the community would have been like. Everybody's like, what the F just happened? And this killer is still on the loose, targeting young girls who are walking home from junior high school. The mayor of Wichita Falls actually said that this was one of those times where the community had just come together as a whole, completely banded together. It didn't matter your, political beliefs, your spiritual beliefs. Everybody wanted to find Lauren's killer and bring them to justice. Early on, there was a little bit of a hurdle. There were 2 different descriptions of the vehicle that was coming out. One was a black truck, and then the other description was a gold SUV. So the police kind of alerted the community to both of them and saying, like, if somebody who matches this description driving this, come forward. There was no success on that. So 2 days go by, and on Sunday, they speak with Michaela again, and she felt like she had processed enough to remember even more key details to give a composite sketch. And I guess the lead detective on this said in 24 years, he had never okayed like somebody in Michaela's condition, age, to have that pressure, provide all the details for a composite, but was like, yeah, well, we're going to do this. So within an hour of okaying that sketch, unbeknownst to the lead detective, a woman and her fiance are also, so this is like, sorry guys, I'm going all over the place. This is like kind of like simultaneously happening. There's going to be like a couple of events that are like happening at the same time, just like divine intervention, if you will. So Michaela is explaining the sketch artist. Meanwhile, there's a woman and her fiance who are out looking at the memorial that, people in the community had made. And around this time, they notice a gold SUV that like slows down, kind of stops and looks, and then continues on. And this matched to the description of the vehicle, of one of the vehicles that was given, as well as the suspect. They ended up following this SUV and said that a young male with like shaggy hair gets out, and he looked nervous. He was looking around. And then the witness said that he goes to the passenger side and pulls out this item, which was wrapped in a blanket, but it looked long, and they thought they could see like the end of a rifle sticking out of it. So she calls 911, gives them the license plate. As these witnesses are reporting their concerns, a neighbor who lives like just right behind the alley where the shooting had taken place, believes that a young, troubled neighbor of hers also fit the description that was being given out on, social media, radio, etc. by the police. So when detectives run the search of this person, it matches the description that is given by Michaela. And it just so happens that there's a police officer that was just down the road when this call came through, who immediately got into the vehicle and sees this suspect get into their vehicle. So follows him for a little bit and then is able to pull him over on a traffic violation. And based on all of the information that was coming so quickly and the urgency of finding somebody, the patrol officer asked for consent to search this gold SUV, and the driver okayed the search. So he does a quick look over and finds a brass shell casing as well as brass knuckles. Now, in the state of Texas at the time, brass knuckles were a prohibited weapon. So because of that, the driver was able to be placed under arrest. The driver ended up being 21-year-old Cody Lott. Cody Lott did live in the same complex that a neighbor had voiced concerns about. That was just a stone's throw away from where Lauren and Michaela were shot, and he lived with his mom and stepdad. He is described as somewhat dysfunctional. He was pretty much a loner, didn't really have a lot of drive or motivation in life, not a good employment track record, like to do drugs. When he's brought into the interrogation room, initially he just denies not just any involvement, but really like any knowledge of what happened. But the detectives are extremely patient, calm, chill vibes. You know me, I love a good interrogation video where like the detectives are just like so good, and they just like spin this web and they get their suspect to say exactly what they want, and it's what you want. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's also like very disturbing. This is pretty much what happened in this case as well. They kind of buy his trust by saying, listen, we want to clear your name, get you on your way. People have had concerns, and like we don't know if they're true or not, so we want to help you out. If you didn't do anything, let's make sure you don't get all caught up in something. They kind of just build rapport with him for about 45 minutes and get him comfortable enough to the point where he just starts telling this bone-chilling, just like infuriating story. And it's like when he starts telling this to the detectives, he almost kind of like flips the switch. He's like more animated and bursting with energy to just like finally talk about this. Basically, Cody says that he had been watching Lauren for a really long time, and he became infatuated with her after seeing her just walk by his apartment building home from school every day. He says that initially he just kind of drove by Lauren for a couple days before he actually had made eye contact with her. And he says that when he saw her eyes, they looked like gems. And he thought, how could somebody have such beautiful eyes? And he was so taken by them that he just like said like, hey, what's up, as he drove by. He then tells police he didn't like mess with her or anything, didn't give her a hard time, but he drove by and thought to himself, I'm not going to let anybody else enjoy that. So from that point forward, he watched her for over a year. He knew her routes and her routine down to a T, and he would wait by his window every day just so that he could catch that moment of her walking by. And over time, he convinced himself that she belonged to him and only him. Someone who he had never spoken to, didn't know he existed besides just a casual passing of like, hey, what's up? He says then one afternoon, his love for Lauren turned to hate when he saw her holding hands with a boy that was around her age. Remember, Lauren is 13 and Cody is 20, and he sees her with somebody her age, and the boy was Lauren's boyfriend, somebody that she had been dating since approximately November. So they were kind of approaching that 1-year anniversary her family describes them as like, you know, like that young love at that time, their first love, the love of her life. And she and he were so happy, and their families were happy for them. But Cody sees her walk by multiple times with him, and he sees him as like a little punk.
And like I'd seen that girl walk in multiple times with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend was just a little punk-looking kid that wasn't no man. So it kind of just sparked a jealousy in me, man, and I felt that was the way I was going to handle it.
Oh my God, like I rage. Like, okay, you're the punk. In fact, he thought, like, he got upset because he's like, I was just looking at the kid and he wasn't a man. And so that really sparked jealousy in me. And it's like, no, he wasn't a man. He was a 13-year-old because Lauren was 13 also. And like, you're pricked in the head. So Cody sees this as like basically an act of betrayal, and he becomes even more obsessed now, but like more obsessed on revenge and like making her pay for having a boyfriend. From what I understand, he did have relationships in the past, but none of them really lasted long. He allegedly had driven a lot of girlfriends away. So like Lauren was just like, he was so fixated and obsessed and had kind of convinced himself like all of those had like failed in the past because like she was it for him. Like this was finally his forever. And when you process that, like it's just like so out of this world to actually like comprehend that level of entitlement and like lunacy. But entitlement, you know, just disgusting. This obsession and anger and rage had built up until September 2nd when he went to his stepfather's gun cabinet, got a rifle, and waited for Lauren to get out of school. He says when he kind of saw Lauren and Michaela come into view, he had grabbed the rifle, got into his SUV, and then he pulled in front of them to kind of like stop them in their tracks. And he explains to the detectives even their impression of just like kind of looking around like, is this a joke? And do you know this person? Do you know this person? No. And then he says, Lauren just kind of looked at him like, you know, okay, please, you know, had this smirk on her face. And he said that's when his eyes changed and he just fired the gun.
So I felt something charge me up, and I jumped in my car. And I just met him at that end of the alley, man, and I unloaded on him. Okay.
I don't know if he ever explained if he had shot a gun before or what the reasoning like behind what he was thinking was at this point, but he had fired the first shot and it knocked Michaela down. And he then turned the rifle towards Lauren, and he said that he kept shooting and he thought that the gun would like jam or something at some point, but it just kept allowing him to pull the trigger. So as it was continuing to go off, he just continued firing shots. He made it very, very clear that had he not run out of ammunition, he would have killed Michaela as well. The only reason that she survived was because he ran out of bullets. He also wanted to make another thing clear, which is very interesting when we get into kind of the defense side of this. He wanted the detectives to know that Lauren's murder was not a senseless killing. He was very upset that while her murder was being reported, that is how it was being explained in the media. It was, you know, this senseless killing of this 13-year-old. And he wanted detectives to correct the narrative and call it an assassination because he had actually put a lot of, so freaking twisted to like even say, but he had put like a lot of time and consideration and planned this out with the devil himself. And it was not senseless. It was an assassination. And even though he had basically just told the detectives that he had killed her because he was jealous, he then tries to justify his actions by saying that he was a hero. Yeah, let's all vomit for 1 second. He was a hero that acted selflessly to save Lauren from the dangers that she would probably face later in life. He thought that if he killed her at this young age, he would rescue her. and prevent her from the possibility of ever being a victim to other predators.
And all I ever wanted was an opportunity to be respectful and treat a girl right, because I knew this girl was going to end up getting raped here in a couple of years, and there's all kinds of evil going on there. So in my mind, I saved her from the evil of this world, and also was kind of a sacrifice to the devil, because like I've been talking to the devil a lot, and he's the one that told me to do that, because I was sitting there with the gun, and I was watching them. I was watching out the window, man, waiting for them she would be walking by herself every day. So Lauren was the only target in the ordeal.
The way he explained this like selflessness of him was that he sacrificed her to God. And then because of this sacrifice, like in the next life, he was going to be rewarded with a mansion and all of the drugs that he wanted. I know, I literally can hear all of the Sippindales right now screaming at their screens like I was researching this case and coming across that. Like, I need like a pillow or something just to like freak out into. Once again, absolutely phenomenal job by the detectives who didn't just like take him by the hair and bash his face into the table. This is reason 892 why I am not a detective. They kept letting him talk, which was really important, because then he goes on to explain that even though he felt like he did the right thing, his actions showed that he definitely knew he was in the wrong. He fled the scene. He also got rid of the rifle in a field that was nearby that he was familiar with, that he knew he could go back to retrieve. He then went to a friend's house, a girl's house that he knew. They did some drugs, and then he let things cool down a little bit. And on Sunday evening, when he felt like the coast was clear, he went back to that field, retrieved the gun, and then put it back in his stepdad's gun case. He even had the nerve to say that he thought that he was like good and clear and had gotten away with it because there was no direct ties to Michaela or Lauren. He had never told anybody that he was infatuated with Lauren. That was something that he had kept to himself. So after giving pretty much everything the detectives needed, they charged Cody with 1 count of first-degree murder and 1 count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for what he had done to Michaela, and he was held on over $4 million bail. I couldn't help but just like feel for Lauren's parents, hearing them talk about once they found out like an arrest, and being like trying to put myself in those shoes and just being, you're dealing with obviously like the tragedy and loss, but then like complete shock and confusion because none of it made sense to them. They're like, who would do this? Who would do this in a random attack? And then they get the explanation that there had been somebody this obsessed with her for like over a year, and they had never heard about him. Neither had Lauren. Like, they weren't friends on Facebook. None of their social medias, like, he wasn't following anything. There was just like no links between them. And something that I have heard from a lot of families that I talk to is like, you're almost trying to get a why, like have a reason, like something tangible to just be like, I need to make this make sense. And this is not making sense. It literally was as chilling and as disturbing as him just watching her walk home from school. Like, and people wonder why us who watch, like true crime and stuff like that are a little bit batshit crazy when it comes to these things. Like, I know my girls for sure are always like, Mom, like, chill out. But I'm like, people are like, we don't know what the fuck is wrong with people. We don't know, like, why? And no one, like, there's nothing that they could have done to stop this. There was no clues that this was going on to Lauren. She had no inkling, hadn't talked about this with anybody. Like, you can't prevent this shit. People are just effed in the head. Now, despite him giving the confession that he did, he pleaded not guilty on both counts, which detectives said they really weren't that surprised about. They had anticipated, like, from the time that he was arrested, that there were mental health issues that were going to possibly be used as a defense. Now, in 2015, he was diagnosed with a psychoactive disorder, so a combination of schizophrenia and an affective disorder. My understanding is like where like the schizophrenia aspect of it is more of like the psychosis side of things, in terms of like hearing voices or like having paranoid delusions. The affective disorder is more related to mood, generally speaking. Like I know that we talk about mental health on here all the time, you guys, so this. It's not like a one size fits all. The way I understood it, though, is generally people who suffer from this are either quite depressed or quite manic. They can be overexcited or disinhibited. But again, like take that with a grain of salt. You know how frustrated I get when it's like mental health is always used as like a crutch for defense. That being said, this was something that the detectives were prepared for, and the prosecution. So they knew that they were going to have to do things like focus on the steps that he took after the fact. So throwing the weapon in a field, then going back to retrieve it, and then bringing it back to his home, but like concealing it, him lying to people. So all of these things kind of created a list showing that he knew right from wrong. Again, we're going to generally speak here, but when we've seen cases of somebody that is in the middle of a mental health episode, they are not aware of right from wrong. Christian Glass just kind of comes to mind for me when I think about, somebody who's actively very scared, not knowing what's going on, and suffering from, I don't even think that we could explain Christians as, possibly as a manic episode. I have to revisit that, but that's kind of what comes to mind. Like they're more scared of anything. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent here. Okay. The point is, there were signs that Cody knew right from wrong. There's also a search done on his electronic devices that further supported that he was extremely troubled just in being just an evil person. His cell phone contained several images of underage girls performing, explicit acts. Actually, because of finding this, there was also possession of child pornography that was added to the list of his offenses. Yeah, there's a spot in Jurassic Jail. If you're new here, we have a thing here. It's called Jurassic Jail, okay? Jurassic Park, okay? But we make it real. And then instead of sacrificing the animals, we take these types of people and then we bring them there to feed the T-Rexes, okay? But for people who do anything to like children, animals, seniors, there's like a different section for you in Jurassic Jail. I feel like it has to do with like the guy with the little velociraptor. Is he the same one with the thing that shoots out the tar? That's what, like, that needs to happen first. Like, you need to be incapacitated with the tar first, and then like just be like disoriented and not know where to go. And then like the big guns come out, like the T-Rex or whatever we're gonna use. Okay. Anyways, I think these thoughts are supposed to be in my head. These could be incriminating later. The point I'm getting at is that I think to explain Cody, like disturbed is like an understatement. Even after his arrest, an ex-girlfriend had come forward and she wanted to just share her experience with Cody, and she recalled there was a time that he tried to strangle her with a seatbelt because the two of them had gotten in like some kind of disagreement. The way that he's kind of explained is that if he doesn't get his way, he just like goes from 0 to 100. Obviously, we know like that, like an extreme 0 to 100. And she said that this situation of him like strangling her with a seatbelt, she was scared so much. She ended up breaking up with him, cut things off, good for her. And that actually led to him allegedly kidnapping her, torturing her and her young son. And she told police like she had never reported anything because she was so scared of like what would happen next. It was like, I didn't even report anything. I just ended things with you. This is what you did. Like she could not even imagine what could happen to her if he didn't go behind bars for like the rest of his life for reporting him. And it was only when she learned that he had been arrested that she felt safe enough to come forward. Acquaintances who knew her pretty much give the ex-girlfriend a lot of credibility in terms of like his personality, like believing that, yeah, he absolutely would be somebody to do that. He's somebody who individuals say like he wasn't used to being really told no. He was spoiled and very entitled since like the day he was born. Pretty much he was like the definition of somebody believing that the world revolved around them, and then had extremely short fuse when things just like did not go his way, or if he was ever told no, he just did not know how to compute. Now, Cody the Coward, that's what I like to call him, his trial was originally scheduled for March 2018. It was postponed, though, when the defense was able to argue that he was not of sound mind and that he was incapable of understanding the proceedings and his charges and going to trial. So he had to undergo pretty intense psychiatric treatment at a psychiatric facility. He was there for 6 months until he was finally deemed competent to stand trial. And the prosecution's case, when they finally went to trial, was just exactly what they had prepared for, just debunking his understanding of his actions, and that not only was he calculated in murdering Lauren, but he also made it very clear to detectives that Michaela would have also died that day if he hadn't run out of ammunition. They didn't want to try to discredit any form of mental health that he had. They did acknowledge that if he did have this psychoactive disorder, yes, it may have led him to having ideas that maybe, he thought he would need to kill somebody, but the act itself had nothing to do with his mental illness. It was all about power, control, this built up rage. It wasn't this like heat of the moment, like, oh my gosh, for the greater, good of humanity, you see this random person and you think you're doing something to save the world. That's not what this was. This was always about control. His need for control was brought up, right in that first interview with detectives, when he was pissed off at how Lauren's murder was being characterized, and he needed to make sure that that was clear. So remember, he's keeping close tabs on all of the coverage of the case, he's learning how media is portraying it, and he's getting pissed off about it, being like, I didn't do this, or I might have, but it had to do with my mental health, but I want it characterized this way. This was an assassination. So when it was the defense's turn, obviously it's not a surprise that they definitely wanted to focus that it was, he did this due to various, mental illnesses that he had. And I get it. I know that is the defense's job, to save their client and to do so by any means necessary. I think I get so passionate about mental health just because of my own experience with it, my loved ones, my family. And it just I feel like it just stalls so much momentum when it comes to the stigma surrounding mental illness. I'm not giving any excuses for anything that happens when somebody, definitely has a disorder that the defense is able to show. But with situations like this, where somebody's been diagnosed with something, but then they're also just an evil person, I can't stand that, because we have a wide variety of people. Of course, there are killers who have, mental illness, but there are also lawyers and doctors who are also killers. You know what I mean? So on September 19th, 2018, both sides rested, and the jury only deliberated for 40 minutes before finding Cody Lott guilty as charged. So he was sentenced to life in prison for murdering Lauren, plus 20 years for the aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for shooting Michaela Smith. And at the time of sentencing, this was the maximum that the policies that were in place in Texas could, provide. So meaning that he is eligible for parole in 2048, and he's only going to be 52 years old. This is something that devastated not just Lauren's family and friends, but even the prosecutor. She was quoted saying, this is absolutely not good enough for me. I don't want anybody to think that, but it's the law. That is the maximum that we could get, and we can't get more. So because of that, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed Lauren's law, named after Lauren, in June 2019. So in Lauren's case, the prosecutors couldn't seek a capital murder charge because she was 13. And so with Lauren's law, the age of the victim where a suspect could be prosecuted for capital murder went from under the age of 10 to under the age of 15, and that's for the entire state of Texas. Now, in Texas, capital felonies can be punishable by life without parole or even death. And I know I had read that there were, some lawyers who are we don't want this to expand into more death penalty cases. And Lauren's dad, Vern, has gone on the record and said, that's not what we're looking for. We actually strongly believe in life without parole, not the death penalty side of things. They said that either way, like if the death penalty was off, like they would be fine for it. They just did not want the possibility of parole as an option for Cody, especially as soon as he would be eligible. Lauren's parents are remarkable. They just seem to live life just like leading in love and forgiveness and compassion. That actually was shown literally, like I'm just like raging. I don't want to cry as well at the same time. Wonderful people. The world needs more of them for sure. So after trial, there was a statue, like a monument put up at the junior high to honor not only Lauren, but Michaela as well for surviving and continuing to deal with complications, not only just like trauma and like emotional, but she actually still has the bullet that was fired into her, like in her body, because it's too risky to remove it at this point. So doctors are just like hoping that her body will, you know, kind of expel it and move it to a spot where it's safer to get it out. So she has this daily reminder. The community came together, put a statue, a tribute, a black horse on the grounds of McNeil Middle School. It had purple and blue paw prints to represent the girls' favorite color and their love for animals. And this is actually the second memorial that had to be placed, because just when you think like there's some good in the world, there's pieces of human garbage that just like rear their little heads. So October 1st, 2020, some vandals had literally ripped the statue off of its foundation, and the community was like shocked, pissed. Everybody's looking for it, hoping that it's just like some twisted prank and it's just going to be like off, you know, off to the side somewhere. No, it was found in neighboring Clay County, just smashed to pieces. So thanks to a tip line that was set up by police, 19-year-old Zachary Kaiser and Tyler Darland were arrested. They were charged with theft and destruction of property. Their accomplices, Dakota James and Braden Seward, were also taken into custody. And Zachary was found guilty and ordered to pay $400 in restitution, as well as 2 years behind bars. But just to show how unbelievable Lauren's family is, the judge suspended the sentence at the request of Lauren's parents, who felt like, you know, this young man is going to stand a better chance of redeeming himself outside of prison walls. He can show, you know, the community, I had a terrible lapse in judgment. I've been given a second chance to do right. Yeah, no. I think it was like within 4 months, he was back in trouble with the law again and went back to jail to serve the remainder of his sentence. I think the judge was like quoted saying, I'm not going to quote because I didn't write the quote down, but I thought, you go, judge. The judge said something along the lines of, you know, like, I would have never done this. Lauren's family gave you far more grace and understanding than I ever would have. And now with you going back to jail, like, you've actually earned every day of the sentence that you're in there. Thankfully, with the help of friends, family, the community, they were able to recommission another statue. And so that second memorial was put up in front of the school. So yeah, I hope those punks are just like an example to anybody out there thinking, you know, like, I'm going to don't touch it. Like, I swear I will shove my foot so far up someone's butt through a screen. I'll do that even if you look at the memorial wrong. I'm implicating myself a lot in this episode. But I'm also saying that because I know that Lauren's family is just like, literally, like, I just want to give them the world. They just seem like the sweetest humans. They're just far nicer and kinder than I am. So I don't mind shoving a foot up someone's butt. Deserving. Like, who's deserving? Okay, anyways. Her parents had actually shared something so beautiful in an interview that I wanted to share. And they basically said, like, this world, if this world was full of people like Lauren, we would not have any issues in this world. There would be no need for laws. We wouldn't need guns. She was just like the purest soul. She led with love and was just the kindest person that you ever met. And something that they take a lot of comfort in is like hearing those stories of the impression that Lauren left on others. After she had died, there was a young man who had shared his story with Lauren, and he had wrote about being a transfer student. He's new at the school that Lauren goes to, and he was really nervous about the first day, not just about like going to a new school, but specifically about lunch, being in the lunchroom and sitting by himself. And I think anybody who's been in that situation can completely relate. Like, that is something on your mind. Like, am I going to have lunch in the bathroom? Like, I'm just going to be sitting here. Like, everyone's going to be looking at me. I'm going to feel like a loser. And I guess within just like minutes, Lauren had gone over, introduced herself to him, and invited him to sit with her. And this was something that he had gone home telling his parents about. Like, I was so worried about lunchtime, and, you know, she came and invited me, and it meant so much to him. He never forgot it. And, you know, like, I don't think till the day he dies, he would ever, you know, forget that. And that kind of goes, I think, is Maya Angelou. Like, people will never forget the way that you make them feel. Bianca, Lauren's mother, had shared that just before her passing, she had told Lauren, you know, like, I think you have a future in helping people, whether that's like a therapist or a counselor, you're going to help people. And they reflect back on what Lauren would have done had Cody, you know, ever approached her, ever stopped her, maybe even just like in distress or wanted to talk to her. They said, had he ever done that, Lauren probably would have. Like, she might have not shown an interest in, you know, pursuing a relationship with an adult male, but she would have, you know, offered compassion and kindness and friendship to him, which she was never given the chance to do to save herself. Like, anyways, we need more Laurens in the world. Please go and send like all of the love and support to her family. They are truly remarkable. I will be keeping an eye on what we can do when it comes, you know, to supporting them and how they're wanting to move forward when it comes to Cody the coward, with parole. So if there's anything we can sign or get on board for, you know, we're there for the family. All right, you guys, that is it for me today. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It means the world to me. I love and I appreciate you so, so much. The answer to today's riddle is, I can fly, but I have no wings. I can cry, but I have no eyes. What am I? And the answer is clouds. Yeah, now I'm saying it out. Yeah, I think this is another one. I think this is another one we did before. I think that's why I got it. I'm going to have to go back and see. Oh, well, it makes me feel better about myself. Okay, I'll see you in the next video. I'll miss you terribly. Until then, make sure to love each other, love yourself, and I will see you soon.